Hey, another interview. This time I'm talking to Andy Barnes, the founder of sixprog.com, which describes itself as an ethical consultancy. So yeah, firstly, great to be talking with you, Andy.
You too, Matt.
And I suppose my first question, what is an ethical consultancy? What is Sixprog?
Well, thanks for the question. Thanks for inviting me to talk.
No worries.
An ethical consultancy, in my mind, is one that's disrupting the existing consultancy industry, and with that, I include the recruitment, the niche consultancy market as well. There are a number of things that we do on our platform to ensure that both the client and the supplier are treated fairly and are able to operate without the traditional hiccups that come and get involved. Most of your group have worked with industries where some of the schemes and the ways that people work are not optimal, and we work against those actively.
Interesting. Do you have any examples of what you mean by an example of not being optimal? What does that bad practice look like, and how do you solve that challenge?
I'll start with one key easy one around money and cost. So when in a traditional world a freelancer is asked to work by an end client, they might do so via an agency. That agency will put some form of margin on top, usually hidden to both parties. And within that, you question, well, how much are they making, and is it a fair amount? It may be a fair amount. But especially recently with IR35, I've heard of project managers working $450 a day below their standard rate because of IR35. And then I've heard the clients are paying upwards of $1,900 for that same project manager.
Wow.
IR35. So you question why that intermediary had decided that IR35 was an opportunity to expand the margin rather than to work in an ethical middle broker position. So that's something that we, on our platform, you're able to create your own work orders, and in that you always know what the value of the project is, and we charge a flat fee to everybody using the site, so it's open and it's published and is available online to see.
No, I think that's a really, really interesting point, and valid. Like you say, not all agencies are working that way, but many of them are, and they do kind of rely on that element of secrecy almost, don't they? Which I think harms that value conversation.
The second, away from cost, one of the other ethical practices that we push through is the idea of retention. So in a typical contract, there will be a clause that says that the supplier cannot work for the end client for a period of 6 months, usually, after the end of the work has been completed. And there's an equivalent clause in the client's contract that says they cannot directly approach or indirectly approach the worker.
Right.
We had our lawyers look at the contracts, they gave us that exact clause and we removed it. Two reasons, really. One is, I think that workers should be able to work without boundaries, and clients, if they wish to use them, should. If our platform is helping both sides, they'll continue to use it. If it isn't, then they will work around it. And secondly, I think there's also an interesting question around what a company should do with that clause. So if someone is to break their contract, do you chase them for it? Are you really going to drag somebody through the courts? Probably not. I know I would.
No.
So I think ethically, take the clause out. We don't need it. So that would be another example.
No, I think that's great. So I think what you're really describing as Sixprog then as that ethical consultancy is a platform based on adding value to client and supplier alike. Your model is all based around that value being present.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's how I wanted to have things when I worked in a consultancy and on client side. So it's what we've built.
No, that's fantastic, and I guess that kind of leads the question, kind of taking a step back slightly, is what led you to do this in the first place? You know, what is your background that led you to discovering this problem and going about it, so you're solving it in this way?
So I used to do projects for banks, especially around risk and regulatory work. And there would be a theme that you would be able to cross Canary Wharf, bump into a friend and say, oh, come and work on my project. and then you would have to find some sort of conduit to deliver that person into the bank to
Right.
get into the project. It's a paperwork mechanism. Whoever you go to will actually want the work offered to them. It's not ideal. They will want a fee. There's too many opportunities for either party to say, actually, I don't want to do it that way, or the fee's too much or too low. This is around the time that things like lastminute.com, Ocado, Purple Bricks, every agency model that worked in the old pre-internet world had been investigated and changed. But for consultancy, it really hasn't, and it still hasn't been. We've seen it change for freelancers globally with companies like Upwork.com, Freelancer, but they're for gig workers. It's not quite the same as the professional community working in banks, telco, education, medicine. These professional industries.
Bigger project, isn't it?
Absolutely. So we saw an opportunity to say, well, what about if we did away with the salesperson, the partner, and you remove those people who are there to create the margin and just have a paperwork process, an easy way of matching supplier to need. And once you have, you just then need a mechanism to create the contract, the work order, and to pay or charge both parties accordingly. That's how we came to that conclusion, that it was worth just making it an electronic relationship. And it's working really well. It's fascinating how many clients move across, and once they've got the concept, they don't leave, which is some great news.
No, that's great. I think that's all you can ask for, really, isn't it? Yeah. No, absolutely. And for me, my perspective is, for freelancers, contractors, the day rate, I don't believe is the right way to deliver work. It's not a value-led approach. And for me, it's all about putting that value first, the clients understanding, so the suppliers understanding the client's need and understanding, whether they have a right consulting approach, consulting product sets to meet the needs of that client. And I think what you're describing in terms of the platform is for contractors, freelancers working in that, more of a consulting way. It sounds like the platform really does ease that process and give, both parties confidence that it's being dealt with in the right way.
Yeah, well, I can expand a bit more on that. So one of the really interesting things that IR35 changes have done is suggested that both parties need to look at the type of relationship that exists.
Yeah.
However, within that, there's a bigger question, which is, why are you entering into projects where you understand the first 6-8 weeks of the project, but signing up to a 12-month engagement?
Yeah.
It used to be a good thing. It gives some sort of security and balance, and that's lovely, but it's not practical. So with 6prog, what we did is we allowed people to create agile contracts. So if I want to work with another party, I can write down the work order as we understand the work today, sign the contract, deliver the work, tick off the milestones, either on a fixed price or an hourly or daily basis. We have all those options. And then move on to the next part of the project. So what you end up with is a much more realistic work order, which, granted, you might end up creating 10 of them across a 12-month period, but each of those pieces of work are created knowing what the work is to be delivered. I can't see how that's of a disadvantage to either party. The supplier knows what they're being asked to do, the client knows what they've asked to do, and they get on and deliver.
Absolutely.
Project scope is much diminished from going outside of scope.
Yep.
Much better control. And it goes back to that transparency argument that I said before. If you work through another intermediary, they're in control to an extent of the contracts, the knowledge base. They end up not wanting to create more paperwork through the year. Put it on a platform, automate it, put the control for the buyer and the supplier, and suddenly they can create the work as is needed to the best of their knowledge at a given time. And as I mentioned, it's a great piece of help for IR35 as well.
Absolutely. And IR35 is obviously a big topic, but for me, it's almost seeing that people getting frustrated with that are thinking about their business in the wrong way. If you're acting as a limited company, you should have an idea of who your clients are that you can actually help. You should have clarity on how you can deliver your services to a client, how you can add value. You shouldn't be just turning up and saying, hey, I'm here, client, what do you want me to do? That is an employee kind of model. It's not a value first model. And I think ultimately client and supplier don't really win if it's not all built around value.
Yeah. The other thing that I think I've noticed changing quite a lot in the industry is the concept of what businesses can offer to each other.
Yeah.
So what we've also created in SixProg is a way of referring other workers for pieces of work. So
right.
If you operate on your own as an island, generally speaking, you'll just be hired, deliver the work, go away again. It's not as valuable as working as part of a community. So we have a portfolio of suppliers and a portfolio of clients, and matching them is the function and the use and the contracts and so forth. But actually having a consultant on site working with a client where they can say, do you know, this new project that's coming up, I've got a better person who can come and help you with that, has a much more powerful notion. And that's where we step into that world of consultancy rather than agency.
I see.
And where you don't have the partner doing land and expand. And I've recently published a blog on exactly this.
Yeah.
Have a consultant who can offer additional value. It's a far more credible thing that clients are making a lot of use of. And at a price point that clearly is better than a traditional Big Four consultancy would come in and help at. And I find that interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think if that relationship starts off based on value, then, as you say, the ability to identify other ways to add value, once you understand the situation in more depth, or when other projects and things come up as well, I think it's the right way to deliver more services to that client, not for the sake of delivery and expansion in its own right, but based on that mutual value exchange and that transparency.
Globally, we're seeing a large shift, irrespective of recent UK changes to legislation, but globally we're seeing a huge shift in the number of people working for themselves, whether they deem themselves a freelancer, a contractor, a consultant, whatever the correct terminology is.
Yeah,
they're operating under their own wings. And I think that as that shift moves, there are a lot of interesting businesses out there who are either going to operate ethically and support those relationships.
Yeah.
And as you know, I'm a fan of, and I've seen the work that Fluent Forward has been doing, especially around helping people to operate as an entity. But there are also a lot of players in there who aren't quite as interesting. And I think that what is cool for me is to almost stick together with the entities that are operating in a favourable way, that aren't simply trying to make hay while the sun shines. I'd like to see businesses generally operating on a much more ethical basis. There's been a lot talked about it, especially with recent government changes, but I'd really like to see some of the bigger companies stepping up and being more green, and helping sustainability, that sort of thing. I think that it's what's being called for from the youth. And I appreciate you're a little bit younger than me, but there's certainly a shift change in terms of what younger people entering the workforce are asking their employers and businesses that they buy from to act and behave.
Yeah.
And I think
that's absolutely
a powerful change.
Yeah, I think the way that people engage, for a number of reasons, is changing. And I think obviously the whole kind of pandemic situation as well has probably accelerated some of that line of thinking, understanding that remote delivery is possible. And it's not about seeing someone sat in the vicinity of you for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So I think that's helped the kind of outcome-led ways of managing work. I think that's helps put an emphasis on that, and people realize that that is possible as well. So yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of hear your thoughts on where you see that going.
So we operate SixProg on a country by country basis.
Right.
We don't do the international sourcing model, partly because I think it's been done. I think there are enough businesses doing that anyway. And partly because I don't think that the price arbitrage of operating some sort of reverse auction is particularly fair.
No.
Different people need to live in different locations.
Yes.
So a few reasons for that. I think that you're absolutely right, though, in terms of the changes over COVID-19, over last year and this year. The ability for businesses to be remote first, and I keep seeing on LinkedIn people saying, we've let our lease expire, it's gone, we are now to work on a new model. They're not sure what that new model might be, whether that means people collecting together once a month or once a year or never. But they know there's a model there. The next 5 years we'll sort that out. We will work out how we want to operate. Speaking personally, I think there's a massive amount of value to being in an office with other people, especially in the start of your career. There's a lot of training and development that you don't learn in the classroom. You learn it by observing other people and people casually giving you a tip or working with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we mustn't lose that. We need to find a way of still allowing people to come through the ranks and have careers and working with others. We don't need the big glass boxes, as you say, for 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Presenteeism has gone out of the window completely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of what I'm interested in, is whether that's, and whether you've seen this as well, is that that's helping to highlight the kind of effectiveness of a value and outcome based approach, which obviously fits well with a consulting model, but could equally apply to employees internally as well.
That's an interesting point. So you're right. If you can't see that somebody is definitely in the office or not, in many respects, you now don't care if a piece of work takes them 5 minutes or 5 hours. You just need to know it's been done.
Yeah.
What will become interesting is how businesses decide to value that work.
Yes.
So, in many respects, if you are very competent at what you do, you should be able to charge a higher fee for that, even if it takes you less time.
Well, especially if it takes less time, you could argue, if it is of urgency to the business.
Yeah, that's very true. So it will be interesting to see, and I know I've seen some of the bigger banks say they still want to see staff in the office after the pandemic and so on. It'll be really interesting to see if those businesses actually lose some of their credibility because people say, no, I'm living, I'm no longer living to work, I'm working to live. And I'd like to spend my time doing that, which I think a lot of people have had those moments. There's a fascinating article online this week, gentleman who sadly ended up in hospital with a heart attack, but he publicised that he now will be really focused on living and evaluating what work is for. At a personal level, I structure my day so I work for 4 hours a day. I read an article a long while ago, but if you limit yourself to working for fewer hours, it actually increases your focus. If you decide you're going to sit at a desk, whether you're in your own home, a coffee shop, or someone else's office for 9 hours, you will fill the 9 hours. You will find ways of filling the 9 hours. So my focus for this year is very much around filling 4 hours with dense, focused work, and then spending the rest of the time doing things that I might enjoy more. I do enjoy SixProg. It's a lot of fun, but it's still...
No, fantastic. I think I didn't know that. I think that's really, really interesting. And I think I think everybody has seen that situation where the tasks just do fill the available time. There's loss of focus. You have a meeting and no one's really sure what the meeting is about, etc., and all of those kind of things. Yeah.
I know I'm also, and slightly off topic maybe, but I'm very conscious of the fact that if we rewind the clock to a sort of pre-World War II time, the economy could work perfectly satisfactorily with one family member going to work, ignoring the other issues around who that family member was and so on.
Yeah.
But we seem to have moved to a stage where we're expected to have a work and a home life, and both of them are full, which is clearly.
Yes.
So we also need to operate in a mode that says, actually, do we have enough stuff? Do we have enough things to enjoy our life? Well, then maybe let's focus on enjoying it rather than acquiring stuff to hopefully use in the future. So that's
absolutely. Yeah.
Twist, but
no, I think that's interesting. It does very much relate to the way that you want to operate, and I think, working today to enjoy the tomorrow that never comes, can be futile. Why not find a way to enjoy today as well?
Great. That'll be the quote on my book, Matt. That's lovely.
Excellent. And for me, in working with contractors, freelancers, to help them build out that consulting model for their business, they say, well, where do we start? And actually, the place that we always start with everybody coming into that process is working out your motivation and personal why. Why are you in business? What is it that you're looking to get out of that business? You might say you want to scale, but what does that actually mean? Does that mean you want to limit risk? Does it mean you want to maximize funds? Well, funds to do what with? It's only a tool to do something else with it. It's an enabler. It is not a goal in itself. Money is only useful if you spend it. Or is it for flexibility? And we have different people coming into that process. And by helping them get that clarity on what they want to get out of it, it has a massive impact on the structure of their consulting product set, the way that they offer those consulting services. Because for someone that is, massively, one end of the scale on flexibility versus someone that's, further over in the other direction, the way that you deliver your work should take account for that. If you put yourself in control of the way that you deliver to clients, then you can structure to optimize to working 4 hours a day if that's what you want.
That's an excellent point. Really excellent.
Yeah, you've got to start with what you're trying to achieve and work back from there and put the right structures, business models, and those kind of things in place. Because I think otherwise you just accidentally end up somewhere and you end up doing what you think you should do, which is 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, because that's what you've done before. It might not be the best thing for you.
I think that could apply to a lot of people, and they may be potentially surprised to hear that. There's an awful lot of stuff saying, get up early, you should be doing 50 press-ups before 5:29 a.m.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, those careers are short-lived doing that, unless they're going to bed at 6:30.
Yeah. Yeah. I think don't look for somebody else's habits of success and think they're the thing that you've been missing, when actually the thing that you've been missing is probably a chance to gain perspective on what it is you're trying to achieve.
I think by working through platforms like SixProg, where we focus on talking about people's businesses, it helps. I think going through the courses you've described to me as well will help people to focus and understand what an objective looks like that is realistic and all of those nice things, but actually is something that they want rather than something that they think somebody else will want them to do. That's quite
absolutely. No, I think that's a really good way to articulate that. So I think I don't want to keep you too much longer, but yeah, because I'm sure we could talk for hours on a number of topics. But yeah, very briefly, what's next with SixProg? Kind of where do you see that evolving and heading next?
So we've recently released a new version of the platform. So it enables people to promote their business to other users as well as off the platform. We have also looked at a number of progressions in terms of mobile and looking at other regions. I suppose in simple terms, if anybody's watching this and is freelance themselves and interested in promoting their business, they just log on to SixProg. Everything is free unless you're actively running a contract through the site. Right. So you just need to know your own name and your email address to get started. I think, Matt, you're on the site, so we can share your link as well, so people can link to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I'll share links to both sites below the video.
Perfect. So, and then the next stage really is making sure that we put pressure on the businesses that aren't operating in what I define as an ethical, optimal way, so that the industry can get a bit better.
Yeah.
I don't envisage that we take over the planet or anything crazy like that, but I do think that grassroots businesses always have an impact on the dinosaurs, and will always help to change things and improve them. So that's the next step for 6prog.
Awesome. I think that's a fantastic mission, vision, and as we've been talking about, it's a very value first, transparent vision and mission as well. So I think that's an awesome place to leave it for now. If people have questions, then drop them in the comments below. We'll share links, as I mentioned, to 6prog and to my side as well, so that you can find out more if you need to. So yeah, Andy, once again, thank you very much. Really interesting chat. I'm sure people will get a lot of value out of this as well. So thank you.
Good to see you again, Matt. Thank you.
Cheers.